put it this way. He needs to be like the car that I have, okay? It's been going for a minute, but it's still able to get me from point A to point B. It's still running smoothly. That's all I'm asking from Derek Carr.
White is a bad man.
What's up, YouTube? It's your boy IJ here with the third episode of the I'm Just Talking podcast, where if you're new here, I come on here talking about everything going on in the NFL, the NBA, and mixing in a little NCAA college football news as well, while talking about my favorite teams being the New Orleans Saints and the Chicago Bulls, and also talking about I love the Jackson State Tigers, my school, and the school that I'm representing as the best HBCU in my personal opinion. So, like I said, if you're new here, this is what I basically go through and talk about. And today we got a good episode. We're going to be talking about the thriller from last night between the Ravens and the Chiefs. We're also going through and talking about the upcoming games for this upcoming week 1 in the NFL. We're also talking about tonight's game as well between the Packers and the Eagles, plus getting some NBA news in as well. So before we get started, as always, got to give on the guy, because without him, I wouldn't be able to do this. And it's always right to give him the praise and honor that he rightfully deserves. And without wasting you guys' time, let's get right into it. So to kick things off, we're going to talk about the thriller from last night. And last night's game between the Chiefs and the Ravens literally came down to the wire. Came down to the final play of the game. The Ravens had the ball. Lamar threw it to Isaiah Likely, who had a great game last night. But he caught it in the end zone. At first, it looked like he had both feet in bounds, but then replay showed that his big toe was out of bounds, and ultimately they didn't win the game. The game ended up going to the Kansas City Chiefs 27-20. And it's true that the game of football is really a game of inches, because that one little inch, that 1-2 inches ultimately didn't lead to the score for the Baltimore Ravens. But it was still a pretty entertaining game. I was wrong with my prediction. I thought the Ravens would come out victorious, but Kansas City, I'll give them their props. They showed why they're the defending champs and they won the game. So looking at the stats last night from the Baltimore Ravens, Lamar Jackson completed 26 passes on 41 passing attempts, had 273 passing yards with 1 touchdown. He also ran the ball 16 times for 122 rushing yards. So last night, if you watched the game, Lamar was, I want to say, he wasn't running for his life, but his O-line really wasn't protecting him like they could have. And it's a lot of new guys on the Ravens O-line, but it was like he had good 2 or 3 seconds, and then he had to take off and scramble with the ball or look for someone down the field while scrambling out of the pocket. So, obviously, the O-line's going to have to get better. I think with continuity, they'll get better for the Baltimore Ravens. And rushing-wise, Derrick Henry had 13 carries, so he had the amount of carries that I thought he would have, but only accumulated 46 yards and 1 touchdown. So, like I said, once the offensive line gets going, that'll pave the way for Derrick Henry to get more carries. I felt that he should have got more carries in the fourth quarter, but that's neither here nor there. And it was really Justice Hill who was getting it done at the running back spot, not on the rushing side of the ball, but receiving wise, he had 6 receptions for 52 receiving yards. Isaiah Likely led the team with 9 receptions for 111 receiving yards and 1 touchdown. And Rashad Bateman had 2 receptions for 53 receiving yards. So the Ravens had a pretty okay day offensively. Mark Andrews, they really couldn't get him going. He only had 1 reception, not 1 reception, but 2 receptions for 14 yards. Nelson Aguilar was the person who had 1 reception for 6 yards. So, like I said, they couldn't get things going offensively for the most part. They had their moments, but they just couldn't get into a good rhythm offensively. So, like I said, once they get the offensive line, down pat, once they, like I said, get some continuity with each other, then I think the Ravens will be a much better running team than they showed last night. Because Derrick Henry, when you have him in the backfield, you got, excuse me, y'all, you got to be able to utilize him the right way. And I feel as if he'll get more carries as the season goes on. But like I said, the O-line, they'll get better. And once they get better, then the team will get better overall offensively. And for the Kansas City Chiefs, Patrick Mahomes, 20 completions on 28 passing attempts, 291 passing yards with 1 touchdown and 1 interception. Isaiah Pacheco, 15 carries on 45 rushing yards with 1 touchdown. While Xavier Worthy, so the guy that the Buffalo Bills could have had during the draft, but they said, nah, we're going to trade out the spot, and Kansas City ultimately snatched him up, and that's basically the new Tyreek Hill. So he hit on his first carry in the NFL, it scored for a touchdown. It was a 21-yard rushing touchdown. He also had a nice day on the receiving side of things, 2 receptions for 47 yards and 1 touchdown. Rasheed Rice had 7 receptions for 103 receiving yards. Travis Kelce also had 3 receptions for 34 receiving yards as well. So, Kansas City, I mean, what can you say? Their defense did what they need to do. They contained Derrick Henry. I'll give them props where props due. It was basically a new offensive line for the Baltimore Ravens, so they took advantage of that. Chris Jones was, wreaking havoc, doing his thing, doing what he does best. And overall, the team just outplayed Baltimore. The defense was able to contain Baltimore in the way they needed to, and then offensively, even though Mahomes threw that 1 interception, they were just driving down the field at a better pace than Baltimore was. So that's ultimately what it came down to. And shout out to Kansas City. Like I said, they started the season off 1-0, and Baltimore is now 0-1 to kick things off in the 2024-2025 season. Switching gears now, we have a game tonight between the Green Bay Packers and the Philadelphia Eagles. This game will exclusively be on Peacock at 7:15 Central Time, and this is a game that consists of 2 teams that end the season off in 2 different directions. Green Bay, they started off slow last year, but they were able to get things going towards the end of the season. They made the playoffs, and they were able to not only beat the Dallas Cowboys, but they were able to push San Francisco to their limits, but they ultimately lost that game against the San Francisco 49ers in the divisional round. Excuse me, y'all. And as for the Philadelphia Eagles, they started the season off hot. They were one of the best teams in the NFL, but at that game against the Kansas City Chiefs, that Monday night game towards late November, things wouldn't arrive for them, and they ultimately got bounced down in the wild card round against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. So, looking at tonight's game, I'm viewing this from Green Bay standpoint first. Can they be able to contain Jalen Hurts and Saquon Barkley? Actually, scratch that. Can they be able to contain this Philadelphia offense as a whole? Because Jalen Hurts, got a lot of respect for him. We all know what he's capable of. Saquon Barkley, they went out and signed him from the New York Giants. They also got Devontae Smith, A.J. Brown, and they went out and traded for Jahan Dotson from the Washington Commanders as well. So that's a nice little receiving core right there. Then, can't forget about tight end Dallas Goedert as well. So that's the one question that I have for Green Bay. Another question that I have for them is, can Jordan Love sustain this momentum? Can Jordan Love be able to keep up the momentum that he had from last season? He started off slow to start the season, but as the season went on, he was able to get in rhythm, and he got paid the big bucks this offseason. So now the question is, can he be able to sustain the momentum from the end of last year, and can he be one of the next great quarterback for the Green Bay Packers? Obviously, Brett Favre and Aaron Rodgers. It went in that order. Brett Favre ultimately left, and it was Aaron Rodgers' turn to be the next quarterback for the Packers. And now it looks like history sort of repeating itself. Rodgers leaves to go to the Jets. Well, he got traded to the Jets. And Jordan Love is now the starting quarterback for them, and he showed his potential last year. So now it's just a question of can he be able to sustain the momentum from last year into this year. And then for the Philadelphia Eagles standpoint, can this defense, well, scratch that, can this team bounce back from what happened to them towards the end of last year? Because obviously the offense struggled in some areas last year to end the season, but it was really the defense that ultimately was the Achilles heel for the Philadelphia Eagles last year. So they went out and signed some players this offseason to help revamp that defense, and that's really the only question that I have for Philadelphia. And another thing that I have a question about with the Eagles is what would this offense look like now with Jalen Hurts and Saquon Barkley? So obviously the talent is there, but will they, go to a more read option type of offense, or will they hand Saquon Barkley the ball like 20, 25 times tonight, or will it be a balanced offense? Will it be, run a couple plays, then if it's a third down situation, we pass it, or it could be the other way around. They may pass it and then run it sparingly, or we don't know. We'll just have to see for tonight. But the only reason that question came up for me was because you have a mobile quarterback in Jalen Hurts and plus another good running back in Saquon Barkley. So it's really just a matter of what they're able to scheme up tonight for the Philadelphia Eagles, and it's really just a matter of bouncing back from last year's disappointment. So if I had to make my prediction for tonight's game between the Eagles and the Packers, I'm going to go with the Eagles. I'm going to go with the Eagles because that offense that they have right now, I don't think Green Bay's going to be able to contain that. Now, that's no disrespect to Green Bay's defense. They have a pretty solid defense. Their defense is nothing to laugh at. But have to stop Jalen Hurts, who's able to, pass it and scramble out when he needs to. Saquon Barkley, when he's healthy, we all know what he's capable of. Then you have that receiving core and a good tight end, Dallas Goedert as well. So those things that I have with Philadelphia, that's the only reason why I think they're winning this game tonight, because the talent that they got offensively. Now, the O-line is gone over some turnover. Jason Kelce retired this offseason, but I do think the O-line will be solid for them tonight, and I ultimately think Philadelphia will be able to outscore Green Bay with the amount of talent that they have offensively and be able to beat them tonight in Brazil. Now, before I make my predictions for the other NFL games happening this weekend, I want to quickly talk about the Saints and Panthers. And this is a game to kick things off for the New Orleans Saints in Week 1. The Panthers will be traveling to New Orleans to take on the Saints in the Superdome at 12 o'clock Central Time on Fox. And I just want to quickly just go over the keys to the game for the New Orleans Saints to come out victorious. Number one, and this is a big one, okay? Number one, do not take this team lightly, okay? That's the worst thing that any team can do, no matter how talented you are, no matter if on paper you have a better roster than another team. Never underestimate your opponent, okay? That's number one. It's Carolina, even though they didn't have a great season last year, they have a lot of talent. They got Bryce Young. I think he'll be a much better quarterback than he was last year. I think he's in a better situation than he was in last year. And, last year he just had a lot of things going on. He had multiple people in his ear. But I think with Dave Canales as the new head coach and him building chemistry with Bryce Young, I think they'll help him out a lot offensively. And then also they have Chuba Hubbard, my fault, and Miles Sanders. Miles Sanders obviously didn't have the best seasons last year, but I think he will have a pretty good season this year. In the receiving core, they still have Adam Thielen. They went out and got Deontay Johnson. Then they drafted Xavier Legette from South Carolina as well. So, and not to mention they revamped the offensive line as well. So this Carolina Panthers team has talent offensively, and defensively, you can't disrespect them defensively neither. So that's number one. Never underestimate your opponent. Okay, that's number one. Number two, offensively, get Alvin Kamara and Jamal Williams going. Now, we all know what Alvin Kamara is capable of, both on the ground game and in the passing game. And I say Jamal Williams, too, because there's no reason why he shouldn't have more than one touchdown this upcoming season. Okay? With Clint Kubiak as the new offensive coordinator, I do think he will give Jamal Williams the touches that he needs. And when they're in the red zone, he'll most definitely get the touches that not only he needs, but the team needs as well. So That's that. Get the running game going. And then thirdly, Derek Carr, just play turnover-free football. Okay, that's all I'm asking from Derek Carr. Just play turnover-free football. Like, put it this way. He needs to be like the car that I have. Okay, it's been going for a minute, but it's still able to get me from point A to point B. It's still running smoothly. That's all I'm asking from Derek Carr. Just be the type. You ain't got to be no Ferrari or Corvette or nothing like that. You can be a car that's been in the family parking lot ever since, say, 2013, 2014. As long as that car is still running, still, you know what I'm saying, getting you from point A to point B, you're straight. Okay, that's all I'm asking for Derek Carr. I'm not asking him to be Drew Brees. I'm not asking him to be, the best quarterback out there. Well, I'm hoping that he is the best quarterback out there, but I'm not asking him to be, the next Drew Brees or nothing like that. I'm not even asking him to be, like some of these other star caliber quarterbacks. I'm just asking him to play turnover-free football. That's all I'm asking. So those are the 3 keys to the game for the Saints. Number 1, don't underestimate this Panthers team. Number 2, get the running game going. Get both Kamara and Jamal Williams going. And number 3, Derek Carr, play turnover-free football. So I'm asking. We all know what the Saints defense is capable of, and this is just a little side note for them. It kind of ties in with the first one. Don't underestimate the Panthers. So if they're able to follow those keys to the game, then they'll be straight. So predictions for that game, I think it's going to be a close game to kick things off. I think it'll be a situation where both teams come out sluggish to start things off in the first game of the season. But I got the Saints winning this with 35-17. I think that once they're able to get the rust off of them, they'll be able to light up the scoreboard and win this game 35-17. And as for the other games for this upcoming slate, this upcoming weekend, we got the Steelers traveling to Atlanta, taking on that team. This is a tough one because there are reports saying that Russell Wilson may or may not play because of the calf injury that he suffered in the preseason that's starting to, bother him again. And those calf injuries, you got to be careful with them. So if it is Justin Fields being out there, I still think Atlanta fools around and gets this one. Plus, it's being played in the dome for Atlanta, so I think they'll be able to pull that one off. Cardinals, Buffalo Bills. This is gonna be an interesting one. I wouldn't be surprised if Arizona goes up to Buffalo and upsets the Bills. Like, I wouldn't be surprised. So that's gonna be the first upset that I have. Okay, this is a bold prediction, but I think the Arizona Cardinals, a team that a lot of people aren't talking about, will go into Buffalo and upset them because the Buffalo Bills, they have a lot of turnover on their team, especially on the defensive side. So I think the Cardinals will be able to go up there and upset them. I think the Cardinals will do the impossible and get an upset against the Buffalo Bills. Titans versus Chicago Bears. Caleb Williams makes his NFL debut, and I think he will get the victory for the Chicago Bears. Patriots Bengals. A lot of questions about Jamar Chase. Will he play? Will he won't play? But at the end of the day, it doesn't matter if he plays. Cause I'm rocking with the Bengals. Colts Texans. Now, this is gonna be an interesting one because the Texans, we all know what they're projected to be this season. But the Colts, even without Anthony Richardson last year, they were still in the hunt for the playoffs last year. So it's going to be an interesting one. I think this will be a close battle, but I think the Texans will ultimately get this one against the Colts. Jaguars versus Dolphins, I'm going to go with the Dolphins. They're playing this game in Miami. It really doesn't make a difference because both teams are from Florida, but I think the Dolphins will get this one. Vikings, Giants, Daniel Jones versus Sam Darnold. Oh, my goodness. oh, my goodness. I'm going to go with Minnesota. With that one. And, that matchup is something. That's something. But I'm going to go with Minnesota with that one. Raiders, Chargers, I'm going to go with the Raiders. The Chargers, I think give them a year or two, they'll be, valuable contenders in the AFC. But in this game, I'm going to go with the Raiders. Broncos, Seahawks. I'm going to go with the Seahawks being the Denver Broncos. Bo Nix getting his first start as the Broncos starting quarterback. But I think Seattle will be able to get this one done in Seattle. Game of the week on Fox coming on at 3:25 p.m. Central Time is going to be them boys, the Dallas Cowboys, traveling to Cleveland to take on the Cleveland Browns. Now, it's going to be an interesting one. It's going to be real interesting on both sides of the ball because Cleveland, it's a matter of what will Deshaun Watson this offense look like. And for Dallas, it's basically a question of what the team's going to look like. But with this one, I think the Cleveland Browns will get this one. I think it's going to be a dogfight. It's going to be a dogfight, no pun intended, for all the Cleveland Brown fans out there. But I think it'll be a real defensive battle, but I think Cleveland will be able to get this one, though. I think Cleveland will be able to defeat the Cowboys in Cleveland. Then the Commanders taking on the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. James Daniels makes his debut against Tampa Bay in Tampa Bay. This is a toss-up. This is a close one, but I think Tampa Bay will ultimately win this one against the Commanders. And then Sunday night game. Waiting all day for Sunday night football game on NBC between the Rams and the Detroit Lions is a rematch from the wild card game. And Matthew Stafford will be making his return once again to Detroit to take on the Lions. I think the Lions will get this. I think it's going to be a much closer game. The wild card game was pretty close, but I think this game will be one of those games where it goes down to the wire and Detroit ends up winning, probably off of either a late second field goal or a late second touchdown. So those are my predictions for those games this upcoming Sunday. And then the Monday night game, I'm going to hold off on that one for the Monday episode and make my predictions for that one. So just a quick run through on my predictions. Tonight's game, going with the Eagles. Then Sunday, I'm rocking with the Falcons, Cardinals, Bears, Bengals, the Texans, my fault. Dolphins, Saints, Vikings, Raiders, Seahawks, Browns, Buccaneers, and Lions. So those are my predictions for the upcoming games to kick things off in the 2024-25 season this upcoming Sunday for the NFL. Switching gears now to some NBA news. We got some news coming out of Chicago where the Bulls have signed a homegrown talent from the area of Chicago to compete for a roster spot for the upcoming season. And reading this from NBCSports.com, it says Talen Horton-Tucker is headed back home to Chicago, although probably to the Windy City Bulls and not the big club. Horton-Tucker agreed to an Exhibit 10 contract with Chicago, a story broken by Sean Chariano of The Athletic and confirmed by Casey Johnson of NBC Sports Chicago. An Exhibit 10 contract means the player is invited to training camp, and if he does not make the main roster, he can get a bonus of up to $77,500 for signing with the club's G League team, in this case being the Windy City Bulls. So, this is a move that it's interesting. It's a real interesting move for the Bulls because Horton-Tucker, he's been in the league for a minute. We all remember him for being on the Lakers team, being with LeBron James and them. And he had a nice little start to his career, but ultimately the Lakers didn't want him anymore. So he ultimately ends up with the Utah Jazz. He had a pretty respectable season there, but people weren't really focused on Utah like that. So a lot of people wouldn't know that. So this move is interesting because the Bulls have a lot of guards on the team, from Kobe White, Ayo Dosunmu, DJ Stewart, who they signed to a two-way contract this offseason, and not to mention Lonzo Ball, Zach LaVine, and Josh Giddey. So they have plenty of guards on the team, and Horton-Tucker, it can be a fit for them, but I just don't know where he would fit in with this, not only the offense, but with the team as a whole. So this is interesting. I think it's just to see if he's able to just carve out a roster spot. But it's going to be interesting because the Bulls already have 14 guaranteed contracts. Continue reading this from NBC Sports. It said the Bulls have 14 guaranteed contracts on the books, plus a partially guaranteed deal with Batum, the sharpshooter for the Bulls. Well, he's not a sharpshooter, but he has a respectable jump shot from the three-point range. So, obviously, this will be interesting because they let go of Batum and give Horton-Tucker or Kenny Lofton, another guy that they signed to an Exhibit 10 contract, a roster spot. It's going to be interesting because on one hand, Talen Horton-Tucker, he's, can't give you some buckets. He can give you some productive minutes, but at the same time, Batum, he's a good three-point shooter. And I feel that that's been one of the key areas for the Chicago Bulls that they've been missing out on. The last couple seasons, they haven't been one of the best 3-point shooting teams. Even though last year it was a point of emphasis for them to make, more 3-point attempts. Those attempts really didn't translate to makes. So it'll be interesting to see what happens, but it's always cool to have another Chicago kid on the Chicago Bulls roster. Even though I'm not, from that area, I still respect the Bulls. I respect the Chicago area as well. And it's just cool to have guys who grew up in that area on the team. So guys like Aldo Sumu, Talen Horton-Tucker, DJ Stewart, Matas Buzelis, and Javon Carter. I forgot to mention him. That's another guard on the team. So if Talen Horton-Tucker makes the team, we could potentially have a lineup where it's just all guys from the area of Chicago. So again, that's, like I said, this is an interesting signing, but at the end of the day, it could be a good signing for the Bulls, and it could be a good depth move for them as well. So, like I said, real interesting for the Bulls, but I'm not mad at it. And then finally for today, we're going to talk about the Boston Celtics. So, like I said in previous episodes, we're going to go through, look at these teams alphabetically, and see what they did in the offseason, and basically make a prediction of what they're going to do this upcoming season. So, the Boston Celtics, they won the championship this season, okay? They basically ran through the competition. They did their job. They did what they needed to do. And this offseason, they basically re-signed all the guys that they need to re-sign. They re-signed Derek White. They re-signed Xavier Tillman. They re-signed Jason Tatum to a max extension contract. They also went out and re-signed some bench guys as well, and Sam Hauser and Luke Cornett. We're also going out and signed Lonnie Walker to a one-year deal as well. So, the Celtics, I don't know what to say. I honestly don't. Continuity, it is best. Because, the whole team from last year that won the championship is basically coming back. So, it's just a matter of continuity for them. They're going to be one of the top teams in the Eastern Conference. Now, will they be able to make it back to the finals is the real question. Because even though the Eastern Conference isn't what it was like 10 years ago, not even 10 years ago, like a couple years ago, there's still some competition for the Celtics. Like the Pacers, you can't sleep on them. The Knicks, can't sleep on them neither. The Cavaliers, can't sleep on them as well. So even though the Celtics, I expect them to, win 52 or maybe more games, 52, 55 games, they're going to make the playoffs, and it's really just a matter of what's going to happen with them once the second round of the playoffs start. Will they be able to make it back to the finals, or will they be one of those teams that end up having another great regular season but weren't able to go back to the NBA finals? So we'll see with that. But for the Celtics, I just think that they're going to be a team that's going to be reckoned with in the Eastern Conference, and they'll win 52 to 55 games this upcoming season. So yeah, that's today's episode. Appreciate you guys for tuning in and listening. And go ahead and press that like button and the subscribe button so you don't miss out on future episodes. I have a couple segments that I'm going to be debuting next week once the NFL season officially kicks off. And we're just going to turn up and have fun on here like we always do. But again, appreciate you guys for tuning in and listening. And as always, KGF, keep God first. Love y'all. Appreciate y'all. Peace. Have a safe and fun weekend. Love y'all. Appreciate y'all. Peace. I'm out.